Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, you guys had a good week as always. If you don't know who I am, my name is Shook. I make NBA DFS content, NFL content, a whole bunch of other content. Um, we're going to be going over the Green Bay versus Washington slate. As always, these videos do get posted on a subreddit. I'll have it linked down below. You can ask me questions leading up to lock about the slate. Anything you need, I'll have that over there. And if you need to get a hold of me privately, I think I already said this, but you can get a hold of me on Twitter. And then if you're looking for more in-depth content, I will have my Discord link down below with sportsbook plays for every sport. We go over, we have MLB content, NFL, NBA, we even play esports, all that good stuff, cores, videos, sportsbook plays. So I'll have that linked down below as well. So let's take a look at some of my NFL stuff from this week. Showdown. Don't know what this was. Cash lineup. I guess that'll be it. I don't know what else I'm waiting for. I don't know. We'll just go over a few lineups. So this was my cash lineup. I made a mistake. Obviously, Darnell Mooney getting rolled out made Drake London just a piss nuke play, so I went down to Trevor Lawrence over Jaden Daniels. That ended up costing me in double ups and stuff like that. So I went to Shane Connor, Drake London, Jerry Jeudy, Ibuka, Njoku, Jonathan Taylor. In hindsight, I probably should have just kept Jaden Daniels, but we move. What else do we have here? This was the afternoon slate. I cored Jordan Love with Tucker Kraft, Golden, and Christian McCaffrey was the core here. We're never going to get Christian McCaffrey that low owned ever again. I flag planted him on FanDuel as well. So afternoon went great. This was the showdown slate for Monday night. Cash went great on Monday night. And this was the prime time 2-gamer where I cored Josh Allen over Lamar Jackson, Keon Coleman. I forget if Coleman was a core play. I don't think he was. I was just extremely high on him. I think it was Josh Allen, Derrick Henry. Dalton Kincaid was the core here. Worked out really well. So I think I made a little bit of money in week one, or close to break even. Not entirely sure. I'd have to fully look, but there were a bunch of stuff that didn't cash, right? Like double ups. My single entries did not cash. I went with the Tua stack and I went with the Jamar Chase stack. So those did not cash, but everything else did cash. All right, yeah, we have a great slate here. I believe the total, probably, I think it's the highest total on the week that we've seen so far. I believe. Let me just double check that. 48.5. So yeah, it's, I believe, going to be the highest total of the week. We have that Cincinnati at Jacksonville. That's going to be a great game. Back to Trevor Lawrence, I guess. But yeah, highest total in the week here. The Packers are 3-point favorites, I believe. So the Commanders just beat the doors off the Giants. Not, I wouldn't say expected, but they beat the doors off them. And then the Packers also beat the doors off of, who did they play? Detroit, 27-13. They weren't really forced to throw much at all. So both teams weren't. And Daniels, I believe, still had how many attempts? 30 attempts. So I'm expecting, a pretty neutral game script here. I think it's going to be relatively close game. I think no leans on the spread and that type stuff. So I think it's just going to be a close, grinded game here with a high total. That should be a great game to watch. So Jaden Daniels up at the top. He's the best play on the slate at $11,000. Most of my lineups are going to have him. I think a way to get different is fading him in heavy Green Bay Packers lineups. I think it's a little bit interesting if you're playing MME and stuff like that. But if you're playing small field, cash games, you're definitely going to want Jaden Daniels in your lineup. Makes for a great captain option as well. And then here we get to Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel. So Deebo Samuel had a monster week one with 10 targets. He had a couple of rushes. I believe, how many do you have? Just one for 19 yards and a touchdown. I think Deebo's probably going to come in more popular than Terry McLaurin. We'll have to see what ownership's going to be. But if people are going to flock to Deebo here, listen, it's not a great matchup for really anyone. Green Bay is very tough defensively week one. But as is, if we get like owner, it's going to be an ownership play for me. Like if we get lower owned Terry McLaurin than Deebo Samuel, I'm just going to play Terry McLaurin all day long, just because his ceiling's higher in my opinion. And factoring in the lower ownership, we're always playing for ceiling on a showdown type slate. So I'm really high on Terry McLaurin in GPPs if people are going to flock to Deebo after that week 1 game. But you can't argue with it, right? 10 targets. He's always been a good PPR fantasy producer, right, with the volume that he gets. It looks like it's not going to slow down too much here, so both are good plays. I prefer Terry McLaurin in a vacuum, though, depending on ownership. I'm probably going to be underweight to Crosby Merritt. If he gets anywhere above that, like 20% range, kind of like what I said with Loveland in the other video, I wanted to be way under Loveland. If he came in that range, if he's going to be anywhere above that 20 to 25 range, I'd like to be underweight to it. Now, if no one's going to touch him, that's a different story. Then you could buy into like getting more snaps after a good week 1, etc., etc. But if they are playing from behind, you have to just be a little bit careful there. So like another ownership play for me, like if people are going to flock to cross JCM just because of the offseason hype and the week 1 hype, and no one's going to play Austin Eckler, who outsnapped him marginally, played 33 snaps. JCM only played 23 snaps. He was in on 20 passing plays. JCM didn't catch a ball, was only in on 8 passing plays, and they were playing from ahead the entire game, then I am just always going to go with the lower owned option here. It's like you can't make it up. Like if in fact Eckler is going to be higher owned than JCM, I'm going to play the guy that's always been solid for solid producer. He's involved in the passing game. I believe his reception line is 2.5 or 3.5 on sportsbooks. He was in for the majority of the snaps, right? So that's one where it's like, if they are going to flock to JCM just due to the offseason hype, the hype he had in week 1, the game he had in week 1, I'm just going to play Eckler all day long. I personally prefer Eckler in a vacuum anyway, but JCM I think has the higher ceiling. I think Eckler's just a little bit safer, but I think both are fine. Moving on down. Then we get to Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz played 45 of the possible 70 snaps. Always going to be running a ton of routes. At 5.8K, I prefer Tucker Kraft. I believe, where is Kraft? Tucker Kraft is 5.4K. I think I prefer Tucker Kraft, but I think both are good values on this slate. We'll talk about some other value in a little bit, but I do give the slate to Tucker Kraft, who I think will be slightly popular on this slate. And then I love the kickers. The kickers are just underplayed. They're always good values. I always think they're phenomenal values, and people just underplay them. Now we're starting to see the ownership slowly tick up on these kickers. When 4 to 5 years ago we would get them at 10%, now they're getting into that like 20 plus range. But I still think at their ownership, they're really, really good plays. Now, this is a higher total game. I think it's a little bit harder for kickers to be optimal in higher total games just because the skill position players are scoring a lot more fantasy points. But, yeah, love the kickers, especially if they're low-owned. I'm going to be all over them once again here. Commanders D, both the defenses, not into too much. And then we get to, like, the punts here. So, Rodriguez was a healthy scratch. You can't play him, obviously. And then we get to Noah Brown, who I think is going to be one of the more popular value plays on the board. Just as a pure punt, was on the field a decent amount, played 33 snaps, ran around on a decent amount of those. I think he's going to be a somewhat popular punt option this week, and I have no issue with that at all. I don't think I'm going to mess with anyone else here. Let's move on to the Packers. So, like I said, the Packers, they were not forced to throw the ball at all. I think this game should stay close, so we should see more. Obviously, they're going to run a ton. That's just what they're going to do. They're going to run a lot more than they're going to pass. But hopefully it should stay modest a little bit that we see more passing being involved in this game. And then if we take a look at the snaps for Josh Jacobs, he played 42 of the possible 48 snaps, pretty much 90% of the snaps. Basically what we expected, pure bell cow playing at home as favorites. He's a phenomenal play. I have no issue with him. Going to be popular. I think it's for great reason. Jordan Love at 10K. Week 1, we had pretty soft pricing. I would say he's more so priced around where he should be. But if you're playing like cash game stuff, you're probably going to want the quarterbacks. We'll see. I haven't ran anything. But like Jacobs is a tough fade in cash. But the quarterbacks are always great plays in cash. So we'll see later on. But you're definitely going to want at least 2 of those 3. If not fitting all 3 if you possibly could. Because the wide receiver plays, especially on the Packers side, a little bit more up in the air. But both great plays. Then we talk about the wide receivers here for the Packers. So Dobbs, 34 of the possible 48 snaps. We saw Golden, didn't play as much as I thought he was going to. 23 of the possible 48. Wicks, 22 of the possible 48. Jaden Reed, 18 of the possible 48. And then the tight ends, Tucker Kraft was basically on the infield the entire time. Luke Musgrave, 17. Malik Heath, 11. So I think the price point on Dobbs just doesn't really make a whole ton of sense to me. I think he's one of the best value plays on the slate personally, especially if he's going to run, how many was it? 34, the possible 48 snaps. How many routes did he run? 18 being on pass routes ran. What else do we have here? But I think Golden is really interesting at 6.4K. I would have preferred Dontavian Wicks to be out. Looks like he's going to be playing, but I think Golden's really intriguing on this slate as a low-owned pure tournament dart. I like his ceiling quite a bit. He's a sneaky play that I kind of like. I can't get to Jaden Reed. I know he had, a touchdown. I don't think I can do it at 8.2K, but the ownership's probably going to be low enough. Maybe you keep him in your 150 max pool. Then we get to Kraft, going to be one of the more popular options on the slate. I think it's for good reason. He's just playing a ton. He's always been a safety blanket. He's always going to get the targets. So the floor is there. Does have a ceiling if he gets into the end zone. Might go a little bit over-owned, but always solid. Love the kickers we already went over. Packers D is fine. I don't mind that at 4.8K. I think I prefer them to the Commanders if I were picking one. We went over Romeo. I think he's one of the best value plays on the slate. And then Wicks is perfectly fine. And then they'll mix in 2 tight end sets. Musgrave will get some plays. But I think with the value you have in Dobbs and Noah Brown on the other side of this game at, what's his price point? 3.2K. It's not really necessary personally for me to go there. And then I'll mention Chris Brooks. He played 9 snaps. I mean, if you need a pure punt, I think you could do a lot worse than that. So I think he is a good punt if you need it. I don't know if I'm going to mess with Heath's the world, stuff like that. Alrighty, let's talk about captain. So I think a lot of people are probably just going to jam Jaden Daniels captain. He's one of those quarterbacks where I'm not going to limit the captain exposure that I have to him. But I want to make sure the lineups that I'm building with Jaden Daniels at captain aren't going to be duped to hell, right? So maybe you pair Daniels with a pass catcher and Austin Eckler or something. That could be a little bit different that I don't think people are going to do a ton of, right? So just be a little bit careful that at that. I am going to limit Jordan Love in the captain. I'm not going to play a ton of Love in the captain personally, so I'd like to be underweight to the field on Jordan Love for sure in the captain. I think Jacobs is a great captain. I really like Terry McLaurin's ceiling in the captain. We'll see what his ownership comes in, but if he is going to be untouched in the captain, I'm going to like that quite a bit. Of course, Debo's playable in the captain. Eckler you could throw in your pool in the captain. And then Golden, of course, both the tight ends. I think that would mainly be my captain pool, and Romeo, I think right there would be my captain pool. All right, yeah, correlation stuff. As always, if we're playing Daniels in the captain, can you play him naked by himself and go a Green Bay onslaught? I think you can, but personally for me, I think most of my Daniel captain lineups are still going to have one of the wide receivers, preferably Terry McLaurin. Like I said, depending on ownership, with Debo and Terry coming out, you could absolutely play both together if you wanted to as well. But I do really like the McLaurin leverage if I think he's going to come in a lot lower owned on this showdown slate, and Debo's going to get the steam. But we will see, though. Just an ownership play to me. Jacobs in the captain, and then we want to go, I don't know, make sure you're correlating, right? So if you think Green Bay is going to play from head, you're going to want to go to the Washington passing game, right? And then go to one of his receivers, etc. So your lineups are always telling quite a story. Terry McLaurin and the captain, Jaden Daniels is going to be in 100% of those lineups. And then maybe you think, like I said, Green Bay playing from ahead, you go to a Josh Jacobs in that lineup, right? You get the point. I think that's mainly it. And then in Discord, we talk more about construction, stuff like that. Once I get ownership, I'll go over who I like compared to their ownership and stuff like that. But yeah, good plays. I would say my favorite plays that I think are going to be lower owned are probably going to be McLaurin. If people are going to play JCM, I just much prefer Austin Eckler personally. Outsnapped him, gets pass game work, right? That's an easy decision there. Yeah, good values on the slate. Romeo, Noah Brown, Kraft, the kickers. I think you can pretty much play whoever you want. Then I mentioned Brooks is a mega punt if you need it. So, All right, yeah, that's going to do it for the Slate, guys. Hopefully you guys had a good week, and I will talk to y'all in the next video.